A lot of people, hey, there is a lot going on right now concerning the next 2027 Nigerian presidential election. Like you all know, for over the years, Inec has been trying to introduce a modern way for voting, and this time they want to include diasporans, that is Nigerians in the diaspora, to also cast their vote. So they have started to introduce a way where there could be an e-voting, but people are biased because they don't even trust that method. It will not work. People are saying it will not work. That for the fact that Tinubu is INEC and INEC is Tinubu, things will still be the same. Because don't forget, they say that so many people don't want Tinubu to continue this 2027. That is, let him just serve his 4 years and step down because of hardship in the country and much more. But then again, I would like you to listen to this video where they will dissect into all concerning the e-election and e-vote, and also what is going to be for diasporans that will want to vote and cast their own opinions through voting system, how they are going to do it, and how INEC is trying to make Nigerians anywhere in the world to be able to cast their vote freely. Please stay tuned, watch, and let us listen to what they have to say about this. Thank you, my people.
I think it is very feasible. This call is not just coming from INEC, but from a wide range of stakeholders that have also been engaging in the election. I, for one, have been technically excluded from participating in election for a long time, not for INEC's fault, but because of the kind of work I do also around election. I registered, for instance, behind the Sheraton Hotel, former Sheraton Hotel here in Abuja. Imagine on election day that I've been posted to go and provide support in other states. It means technically that I may not be able to vote because, of course, I am not registered in that location and there is no provision for me to register. Over millions or thousands of Nigerians always engage elections as election workers. Think about election security. Think about election observers. Think even about INEC staff. Over 14,000 people are on the payroll of INEC. And all of these persons are technically not able to vote on election day because, of course, of the work they do on election day. Now, if you look at lessons from other countries, especially like our neighbors, Ghana, these are things that they have embraced long ago. And if we keep going for study missions to go and learn about these processes in other countries, then perhaps it is time we begin to think about domesticating them. The idea simply is that you have a provision where early before election, these essential workers are given the opportunity to come and vote before the proper election day, before election will begin. This is a practice that is also common in places even like the United States of America, for instance, that have even perfected their own, that you have even mail-in voters sending in their votes well ahead of election. So I think this is something that if we have the enabling laws that can be practicalized, not just even for early voters, but if you think about diaspora voting like INEC had proposed, I think it is something that we should begin to think towards the 2027 election. How feasible, how can we do that? We could, as simple as even say, have polling units at the embassies, in different embassies abroad, where willing Nigerians can troop in on election day to come and cast their vote under the supervision of the embassy staff. And of course, you expect to also be non-partisan and be able to act in a professional manner. Not only that, if you think also about our other friends, brothers, relatives that are also incarcerated, or if you like, are in prison, we could come up with also a policy or a strategy for them to also be able to meaningfully elect who becomes their leader, because of course, some of these prison terms are not life sentence terms. These people can always come back to come and also rejoin the society. So how do you want to, set up a system or a process in a manner that every aspect, every person that is involved in the process is given the chance of electing who becomes their leader? For me, that is what participatory and inclusive democracy is all about. And I think I agree with INEC. We need to begin to rethink that. But for that to happen, you need enabling laws. And that's why the push for electoral reform for me is very key. And starting now for me is critically important, because when you have all of these laws in place, you want to test the laws and test the applicability of some of these provisions ahead of the major election in 2027. So if we have the chance to even try this, maybe in the Anambra election that will happen later in November, or in the Ekiti and Osun election that will happen next year ahead of the 2027 election, I think all of us will be, it will be a good thing for the country and also for electoral democracy.
Well, I wanted to ask you about diaspora elections, but what are your thoughts on the proposed creation of these electoral offense commission and the political party registration and regulatory commission and separate tribunals for electoral offenses? We all know that this would ease investigations, but another question on how feasible is this?
I think it is, again, very feasible. People have argued, especially in the National Assembly, that we have so much of commissions that all we need to do is to begin to strengthen orders. So long as we can have an agency or a commission that is dedicated to doing this, for me, I think it is good. Look at where this request is coming from. It's coming from the Independent National Electoral Commission, Inec. And if you read the body language of Inec, it is technically telling you that they want Nigerians to take off some of the loads or the burden that INEC has, one of which is political party monitoring, APM, one of which is also the electoral offenses. At the moment, we have agencies like the Financial Crime Commission and all of that once in a while come in also to provide support. But strategically, what the commission is requesting for going forward is, can we have a dedicated commission that will be charged with doing this? A lot of proposals have been advanced in the past. The Waste Committee report of 2008 had also advanced this proposal to have a separate commission to do this. This is because around our elections, the commission is always people are in court with other people. In the last election, 2023 election, for instance, INEC had complained that it was a party to suits in the election of over 800 cases. What time had the commission got to be responding to these suits, and what time has it got to also plan and manage elections? These are the angle we should be looking at this from. That if we have a separate commission to manage all of this that is imbued with the responsibility of managing this, perhaps we may see a better approach or a better engagement. One of the things that has also been happening for me is the concern or the challenge around how long it takes sometimes to even manage these processes as we have in the court of law. Do not forget, when you go to elections, technically even other processes are suspended because you want to have the judges to take charge of these cases. So technically, they may have to suspend their other cases to deal with electoral matters or electoral issues, which in itself also takes years or months before you get any tangible results out of it. What Nigerians want to see is a speedy adjudication of justice, a speedy conclusion of electoral-related issues. Most times when we talk about electoral offenses, what people will be telling you is that we want to see that people are apprehended, people are tried, or that examples are made of persons so that to serve as deterrents. For how long are we going to be waiting for these deterrents to happen when you don't see action? So if you have agencies that will act swiftly, that will arrest and prosecute people as these offenses are committed, for me, I think it is the best way to go for our elections.
Well, I'm going to take you back to the issue of diaspora voting, and I'm wondering if INEC, as it is right now, has the capacity to begin diaspora voting, seeing as our local elections here are fraught with irregularities.
I think we shouldn't make excuses for INEC. That is why it is appointed as a commission to do that. And if it needs to be strengthened to manage diaspora voting, we could do that. The point I made earlier is that we have agencies of Nigerians abroad, embassies of Nigerians abroad. What does it take to administer an election? Currently, what we have are even the National Youth Service Corps members providing support on election day. Not like you have the 14,000 INEC staff going around to manage elections. Election happened in 176,000 locations. And so if we could have agencies in 176 or thereabout countries worldwide, and you are able to deploy even one or two members of the National Youth Service Corps to manage this election, and maybe with supervision from one senior official from the country, I think we'll be able to do that. This is not solely an INEC responsibility, but a Nigerian responsibility. We're looking at how we will be able to open up the space, allow an inclusive process, how every mini Nigerian that want to participate in the process will have the chance to participate. Like I said, my proposal will be start from one location and how that works out, then we can think about expanding. Even if we are not able to do in 170-something countries that we have at the moment, we could take a sample, just try something in the next cycle of election and see if it works, then we can expand from there. But I think it is something that is doable. We have the resources, we have the wherewithal to do that. Nigerians can do it. We don't have to rely solely on INEC. We can pull up resources from even credible observer groups that have observed elections in the past, that understand the rigors of elections or managing elections, to also provide support to INEC. I mentioned the National Youth Service Corps. It's also a very powerful force that we can rely on if we want to execute that. You can also go back to the Teachers Union, for instance, have credible teachers that are non-partisan, that are willing also to support the process, deploy them outside just for the period of the election, a week or two, go provide the support and then return back to the country. I think it is something that Nigerians can do.
And as we approach future elections, 2027, what timeline do you believe is realistic for implementing any of these amendments to the Electoral Act?
I think the time is now, if at all we really want to move forward with this, because if you recall in the past, when Nigeria made an attempt to introduce a new electoral law in 2019, one of the reasons why President Buhari did not sign that into law was because of the timing. You don't want any changes to be made 6 months before a major election, according to the ECOWAS Convention. So if that be the case, and if 2027 is barely like 24 months from now, I think we need to hasten up and have all of this amendment or these laws passed now so that we can start the test implementation before the 2027 election. Like I will keep saying, there is opportunity for the Anambra election. There is also opportunity for the Ekiti national election that will happen in the middle of next year. We shouldn't miss this opportunity to test these new reforms before the big election in 2027. So if this will happen, we need to close ranks, the National Assembly and all stakeholders. I know there have been, a lot of this is in the works about amending the Electoral Act as it were. But again, we also have to look at these laws that are people-centric, that are totally going to change the way our minor elections are conducted. What are some of these issues? People are talking about, we want to have technology now mainstream in every aspect of the election. For instance, people are also talking about, now if we have all of our details captured on the bimodal voter accreditation system, can we move it forward to also begin to think about moving away from using the PVCs, for instance, and just going and then, since the beavers had the way of recalling back our data, but you also have what the law, all of this will be backed by the law. So looking through all that had happened in the last 2 years since the last law was passed, recommendations have been made. Inec on his part said he had made over 142 proposals. There have been a lot of proposals also by civil society organizations that we need to look through, which I'm very sure at the moment the House Committee on Election is looking through. But we shouldn't also waste time on this. This is the best opportunity and the best moment for Nigerians to have a new law. The last time it was passed in February, a year before the presidential election. We are hoping also that by the coming February, we should also begin to move forward, that at least give it 2 years before the next cycle of election, so that to also allow all the stakeholders to plan ahead of the elections.
Well, before we let you go, it seems that the proposed reforms by INEC did not address a critical issue, the issue of INEC being held accountable for the conduct and outcome of an election instead of urging aggrieved candidates to go to court. How can this narrative be changed?
Well, I don't think it's something that we just wish it off like that. INEC will continue to be held accountable, especially if people feel aggrieved about the process of the election. For me, it's a challenge and a call to action on the Commission to continue to hold its head high and also do things that they think is right, not just by the people, but also things according to the dictates of the law. The challenge has always been that INEC will tell you its workforce is always small. That is the challenge of Nigerians, because you also want to identify credible Nigerians that will be able to administer or manage elections. The challenge of our election is that it oscillates between one election to the other. For instance, Edo election, there was INEC got a lot of sticks from the Edo election. On the election happened, INEC was praised for managing the election better, for better management of logistics. So you want to see that you have one template that can solve most of this problem. But it is not true in our election. You go to the next cycle of election, and again, may disappoint Nigerians. That's always the challenge. We want to see consistency in the management of our election. And then, the ball falls on INEC's court. I know as much as it works with other stakeholders, but it can also identify where the challenges are and see how it can be addressing the challenges. One of the challenges was the perennial concerns of election logistics. INEC managed it better in Ondo. Whatever was the strategy it used in Ondo, can we start planning towards the FCT election that will happen this year, or the Anambra election that will also happen later in the year? I know INEC will tell you that if you're talking about logistics, you also have to think about infrastructure within the state. I agree, but then there's also a place of early planning, and that is why in the Electoral Act, for instance, there is a proposal for resources to be allocated to INEC at least 360 days before the election. Maybe INEC is not coming to tell Nigerians if it had received these resources well ahead of the election for it to properly plan. Again, that's the angle that I think we need to look through. The need for openness, especially from all stakeholders, from the government, from INEC, around the planning for election. I think it will eliminate all of those assumptions we have around our elections.
Well, it was very good to have this talk with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul James, Programs Manager for Yaga Africa. Thank you.